Wait.
All right, I'm starting the meeting. Thank you.
I already know you. Thanks.
All right.
Yes. Director Coverdell?
Here.
Vice President Michelson?
Here.
Director Flint?
Here.
Dr. Grasberg?
Here.
President Reynolds?
I'm here.
Okay.
Ken, do you remember the words?
I do. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen is also part of this. Just in case you forgot.
Or it should be.
Would you say amen?
Amen. Amen. Well, we can sing.
No, that's enough. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Coastside County Board meeting. Thank you for coming. We do welcome your comments. We do have a paper format thing so we get your name spelled correctly for the record. Does anybody want to submit a public comment slip?
Okay, Josh, do you want it there?
Okay. All right. Well, if you do have a question, don't hesitate to fill out a slip and bring it forward. All right. Moving on to the consent calendar. Gentlemen, do we have any issues to withdraw from the consent calendar, or do we have comments, questions, or discussion on the consent calendar comments?
I reviewed the financial claims and found
Okay.
everything to be in order.
Okay. Excellent.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir. Comment away.
Item L is our annual write-off of bad debts. It's about half the normal level or half the typical level, and that's, I want to give credit to Deborah Barella, who's made a very concerted effort to collect from the folks that move away without paying their last bill. So,
What was the
that
big
has been-
difference?
And it's just aggressive pursuit of the folks, persistent, going after the folks that haven't paid. We don't have great leverage, so it's just a matter of continuing to call them, ask them to pay. So,
Okay. And the deposit was refunded after years anyways, so it's not really a leverage item.
right.
Okay. Well, if you could pass on my thanks to her efforts to do that, because it's appreciated, and I think it's unfortunate when we have to write off bad debt. So I really appreciate her work and effort to do that. I know that's not an easy job, so my
Everybody
hats.
can look at this list and see your friends and neighbors.
Yeah, for the first time, I don't have
Yeah, I
a
know.
friend on the list.
Yeah, we went through and said, well, I don't think I have any.
I really don't actually know any of those people. All right, very good. All right, so can we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
So moved.
All right, second, perfect. We good with that? You want an all A's?
We can do how you.
All right, we'll say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Objections, abstentions, so carried. All right. Do we have any meetings attended? Director, yes, sir.
I wanted to thank you guys in my absence for appointing me to the recycled water.
You weren't paying attention.
That's what you get.
There was some debate whether you'd catch that or not.
Yeah, reminiscent of everyone in the line, and whoever wants to volunteer step forward and the whole line stepped back. Anyway.
Did you catch the part about the paving up the treatment plant, that you're in charge of that one being environmentally sensitive and properly landscaped as well?
I'm noting a sort of a common thread running through these things. Attend the meetings or get appointed. So I'm going to be here often. But I want to tell you that I'm absolutely honored and pleased to report to you about the first meeting which we had.
Excellent.
And I think that the biggest kudos are to our general manager, Dave Dixon, having had a lot of experience with Sam, was instrumental in kind of keeping the discussions on track. Unfortunately, the negative report I would have is that it's a typical meeting where people are going to get together and cooperate, and the list becomes insurmountable. There begins to be a lot of dreaming and talking about what ifs. And I think what ended up happening that was great is that Dave brought back into focus how much water is really being produced out of SAM, how much is really viable and useful, and what kind of numbers might be required for us to actually pursue and get a project going. At the end of that meeting, there was a discussion about going back to the only customer that is viable for us in the short term, which is Ocean Colony Partners. And it was a very great suggestion. There was a follow-up meeting. Tomorrow night we have our second meeting already with this group. So it's a very proactive group, and I can tell you that it looks like there can be a deal. And it looks like the deal will be with Ocean Colony, and it looks like the deal will run through us, which is kind of what we're hoping for, I think. And I mean, it has to go that way in
Yes,
my
required
opinion.
by law.
But I think that what I would love, I don't know if I can receive any direction or how far I can go in a report.
You can give a report, this is on the thing, I wouldn't go much further than providing a report at this point.
Okay, so I'd like to report to you that what I hope occurs in the meeting, or what we're looking at trying to accomplish, is we need an agreement with SAM. And once we have an agreement, then I think we'll be in a position to move forward with a clear understanding of what everyone's role is going to be. And I just, my report to you is that I just hope we can stay streamlined without our general manager, who's very effective in these meetings.
Good. Did you see the 3 nods on the SAM board?
I got to tell you, it was a real fuzzy meeting, but it just got a little, I mean, it just got into too many other things that we could pursue. Grant money, and you know, we could create this whole recycled purple pipe system.
Well, you did bring up the good, my pet concern is identifying the customer first. So if there's a customer, that's a great place to start. So I'm glad to hear that the customer is back.
I think you can be excited at the way that's moving. I mean, I'm shocked, sort of, you know, because it's going to happen. That's what pleases me to know. So that's my report.
Good news.
Excellent news.
And I'd like to agendize it for our next meeting, because I will not only want to report, but I will probably be asking you for some action items. So
Okay.
I don't know how to go about doing that at the end of my report. So I'd like to do that.
Chris?
No, I was happily on vacation, so if you want to hear about my vacation, I could go on and on.
With slides?
Yeah, but no, nothing of, although it is raining in other parts of the world, I can't tell you. Central Europe is getting deluged with rain, so it's.
That explains why it's not here.
Yeah, it's just happening somewhere else.
Nothing to report.
And I myself was at a meeting in with California, Nevada American Water Works Association, and we did discuss what other utilities are doing as drought preparation. And it was interesting to look at the spectrum of what different agencies are doing. So that's what I brought.
Glenn?
Yeah.
Were those procedures directly related to how dire a given water district's situation is? Or were there some people some districts maybe weren't in dire need but were jumping in with both feet? Or?
It came across 3 levels of those that are truly in trouble, those that are concerned, and those that were less in trouble, in my opinion, or the demand, their demand hadn't been as curtailed, but their actions were aggressive. Mm-hmm. And some of that sounded like they wanted time to gear up and implement. So for instance, one city's made the use of potable water for construction purposes illegal. But it obviously would be disingenuous to have the contractors trucking water from the next town. That would defeat the whole, well, but, I mean, if you just pass the ordinance and say you can't use, you know, we will no longer rent meters for hooking up to hydrants to fill construction trucks, that, and then they just go next door to the next town, that defeats the purpose. So the city is working on providing an alternative, non-potable water. but that takes time. And so if you're going to implement that of saying you can't use it, then you wanna have a plan for an alternative non-potable supply, and they have access to recycled water. They also have an interesting conundrum. They have water that is drainage from developed sites, like neighborhoods, where it runs into a basin and is then, it's not, it's just this pumped water they have to pump to keep the houses from being wet. And so they wanna use that. But that infrastructure will take a little time, and so they want the lead time. And I think it's interesting to watch them sort of work backwards from, well, if you're gonna say happens in the fall. So those were the three kind of scenarios of what we heard about, and, politics plays heavy and hard in the whole thing. So,
Was there any discussion about Scotts Valley? Because I heard they're selling recycled water now to their neighbors.
Scotts Valley didn't come up. Santa Cruz obviously has been in the news that they have now a penalty that's quite severe, and they're offering an out with water school. The same way, well, you know how you get a
Can you
traffic.
do it online?
No, you have to go. But you know how you get a traffic violation,
right.
and you can go to traffic school instead of paying. So the case the newspaper article cited, it was $700 in fines, and then the person who gotten the fine went to a Saturday water awareness workshop, and they reduced her fine to $175. And in fairness, Santa Cruz sent out notices saying, if you exceed your allotment, this is what the fees will be, and we want you to know. But she exceeded her fees.
I think it's a trend. I think that's great.
So-
We'll see road crews watering along the highways pretty soon,
It's gonna be a pretty full traffic school if we do that. So that was my meeting. And unfortunately, I flew over more dry reservoirs, so yikes. All right, we're ready for general business. Item A, our proposed, or item 6, I guess, section A, our proposed. Dave, you want to take that?
Sure. The longer-serving board members can remember AT&T's efforts, about 3 years ago probably, to establish a cell site at our El Granada Tank 1 location. I think that was the best attended meeting of any public agency on the Coastside other than the city council for quite a while. We had about 60 people who came in, and it led to the formation of the El Granada Neighborhood Action Group and the Stop the Tower cell site. And so I think we all learned some lessons from that, one of which was that we ought to give earlier notice before any of these things hits kind of the public forum that's created by the permitting process and by discussing the site here. So that's the purpose of our putting this on the agenda tonight. AT&T has been working on this site for a while. I'd like to introduce some folks that have been helping us. Aaron Levinson, Communication Site Leasing. I started working with Aaron when I first got here. He's the one who has helped us with all of the cell sites. I think this would be our 5th site if we're successful. We have now about $135,000 a year in cell site revenue, and that those contracts are 25 years with extensions, so and then they have CPI adjustments generally, so it's a nice little stream of revenue.
Bring it on.
Yeah. So we could change our message to the public: use less water, text more. Text twice. Shut it off now.
We'll have to put a bandwidth.
Download Netflix.
term in.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really
Yeah.
proud of.
Turn off. Get out of the shower and in front of the computer.
And from representing AT&T with various organizations, I think, Angela Dana and Masako Hill and Stephen Nelson, who's standing there behind the camera. They would like to talk a little bit about their proposed plans for the Hazen's Tank site, which we think will be less controversial than El Granada Tank 1, given that there are no houses around it or above it.
Given we didn't get a single speaker slip and you had it on the public
Well,
agenda.
it's early.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here. My name's Angela Dan. I'm the External Affairs Area Manager with San Mateo and St. Clair County. I think we're happy to be here. This is what we think are a really good site. It'll be, hopefully make the residents happy, make you guys happy, make AT&T happy. It's a CNU 5279, so it'll be at the end of San Juan and Ferdinand. And what we'll put together is Misako will talk a little bit more about the site, why we chose it, and the photo sims behind it and what it's gonna do. So if you guys have any questions, let us know. We're here to help out and we wanna hear all different opinions and what we can do to move forward on this site.
Good evening, Board. My name's Misako Hill. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the proposal. AT&T is proposing to install a 65-foot faux pine tree. We're going to bring power, telco, and fiber to the site. We're going to install a pre-manufactured equipment shelter and associated interior equipment. There'll be a GPS antenna, 8 panel antennas, 16 remote radio units, 6-foot-high chain link fence with gates, a propane generator, and a 6-foot-high CMU retaining wall to enclose the tree and the shelter. The proposed site is within the Hazen Water Tank Compound on the Coastside County Water District property, located north of the junction of San Juan Avenue and Ferdinand Avenue. The proposed facility will improve AT&T's network coverage in El Granada in the area bounded by Paloma Avenue, Santiago Avenue, San Juan Avenue, and Alhambra. Indoor service will be improved for residents, allowing them to take advantage of AT&T's high-speed wireless network, including the new 4G LTE network. In-building service is critical as customers increasingly use their mobile phones as their primary communication device. Landlines to residences have decreased significantly, and more people are relying on their mobile phones to do a lot more activities like web access, texting, GPS location, and E911 in particular. 4G LTE is capable of delivering speeds up to 10 times faster than industry average 3G speeds. LTE technology also offers lower latency or the processing time it takes to move data through a network, such as how long it takes to start downloading a web page or file once you started the request. Lower latency helps to improve the quality of personal wireless services. What's more, LTE uses spectrum more efficiently than other technologies, creating more space to carry data traffic and service and to deliver a better overall network experience. AT&T designs and builds its wireless network to satisfy its customers' service standards, which ensure customers receive reliable in-building service quality. I'm excited to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the proposal.
A couple of questions.
Yes.
One, you talked about a generator.
Yes.
What kind of noise will that produce?
I don't have the generator specs with me, but I can definitely get that to David. The generators typically, I think, get tested once a month, but they're for emergency purposes only. So only if, I think the batteries have like a 8-hour life after the power gets shut. And then if power doesn't go back on after 8 hours, then if in an emergency situation, the generator will be used.
So it's not on all the time?
Exactly, no, not at all, yes, definitely. But I can definitely get that information to David.
They also make different sound level enclosures.
That's what I was
And
wondering.
it's
Also, is it inside the building, or is it?
The generator is going to be outside the enclosure, but the whole enclosure is going to be surrounded by a 6-foot concrete masonry unit wall. So there will be some, mitigation of noise when it's tested. But I don't think the testing lasts very long. I think.
Do you have any sense of? Because I don't have a sense of how far the nearest residence is from here.
So I have some drawings I can pass around.
There may be one in the.
Yeah, there is.
packet.
So there's
That
a-
shows some of the houses.
Yeah,
Couldn't
so
tell.
if you have the drawings, refer to page A1.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh, there's a foot,
It's a
300 feet.
311 feet.
Okay, okay.
That's to the street, though, and it
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like it
So-
may be just a few, maybe
Should be
20 or more feet to the residence.
Okay.
And there's quite a bit of vertical change there as well, so the tank is quite a bit higher.
Yes.
And noise tends to go up, so, okay. And the other thing that I wanted to ask about, not having been through the prior tower wars, is in the interest of transparency, given the fact that there obviously will be a sensitivity in the community to it, not knowing what it is, but just based on the prior experience, I'm wondering if this would be something that would be worth having some kind of informational sheet at the El Granado post office. Because everybody walks in the post office and looks at what's hanging on the wall. And just something to let people know where it is and the fact that it's gonna exist. I'm always reticent to say that it's transparent because it's on our agenda.
Once I submit the application, I move forward from here, I will be preparing a zoning application that goes to San Mateo County, and they will send out notices about the application, I think to 300 feet from the property line, or higher. It depends on, I think there's a threshold of the amount of notifications on the listing, but it does get notified through that application process.
And will you be planning any kind of a community meeting for anybody who may want to show up and get more information in that neighborhood, or is that not typically part of the process?
It's typically not required by the county, but if there's, in the past, if there's public comments, then the county does recommend a meeting be held, and I've done that in the past.
I would say that the other sites that we've done have generated no comment at all. We have two sites up at Carter Hill. We have a site at Miramar Tank, and we have two sites at Miramar.
And the Alps.
And one at Al's. And typically, they haven't had any public discussion before we bring the lease agreement, which we've negotiated, to the board. They've gone through their public hearings at the county and everything else. So the degree of concern we saw with the El Granado Tank 1 site was unique. Out of 5 of them, it was the only place where, on the others, not a single person commented or in any way reacted.
Well, I mean, this doesn't seem like it's
Yeah.
gonna create a problem
Right.
for the neighbors at all, and that's really, really good. I'm sensitive to the fact that there was concern at one time and that we should be bending over backwards to be sure people understand that we're considering it.
Just an historical note for you on that. The one that was protested, the tower was literally reachable from one person's deck. And so it was kind of a whole different animal. I mean, it was right in the middle of a neighborhood,
It
and,
was view corridor
Yeah.
issue. It is primarily view corridor issue.
yeah, so there, but, you're welcome to your opinion on it, and
Yeah.
certainly I think being transparent is important, but there's a lot of public notification gonna go on with the permitting, so I don't know.
Well, that maybe is enough. I just wanted to throw it out there as an option because I think one of the reasons that we stay positive in our customers' minds is if they feel we're trustworthy and not trying to pull something. That's all.
There are a lot of people with AT&T phones who wish they worked better.
Yeah, I left AT&T because they're miserable on the coast.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear you doing something.
Yeah. I too am a veteran of the Power Wars. And this is the same tree that you brought to us years ago. Hasn't technology shrunk these things?
The topography defines the design of the tree, so this site in particular, as you can see, is surrounded by a significant amount of trees.
Gee, I need to get it.
Yeah,
above
so
the,
typically
noise
antennas
to
work
get
by
it
line
on
of
the
sight,
side.
so we have to have some height in order to,
But is it technology, I mean, everything is shrinking. I remember the original cell phone was what's in the briefcase. I mean, Are the towers, what's the trend, the shrinkage trend in towers?
Right now, with the data needs, the number of antennas unfortunately isn't,
But the physical antenna itself, I mean, are they gonna be the size of a shoebox in the near future where we can more discreetly locate them? Because I mean, I love the money streams. I mean, I think we should have more data.
from what
offsets
I've
our rate
seen,
increases.
unfortunately not. The antenna size is, typically, 12 inches wide, 6 feet tall is kind of the standard configuration.
So that standard hasn't changed in the past 6-8 years, from what I'm seeing it lately.
Unfortunately not.
Okay. All right, so there's no Moore's Law here. That is,
No.
They get half the size every 18 months. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I think one aspect of that, though, that it would be important in an agreement is as technology changes and they bring in new antennas, they take down the old ones, so they don't just keep cluttering them up. So I don't know if that's gonna be a standard clause, but I've seen that before in other agreements.
Yeah, that does make sense. Anyhow, just wondering it.
Yeah, right now AT&T's standard configuration is 12 antennas.
So, I have one other question. You're bringing in power and telco and fiber to the site. Will any of that, would we have any benefit from that down the road?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we don't have power there now, so, and we don't have much power requirement, just a few watts to power some small instrumentation, and that we plan to take some power off of AT&T's source. So that's an added benefit that this project would deliver for us. Haven't really gotten to whether we'll have access to the fiber for backhauling our data, but our minor amount of data. But yes, I think we will have access to the power.
Go ahead.
And the tree looks like an evergreen to me. I just want to be sure it's not deciduous.
It is not.
That could be a problem in the winter.
Not subject to bark beetle, so that's.
Yeah, good.
One of the concerns at the last debacle was people were worried about the health effects of the tower array. I assume you have pre-prepared material that you'll be prepared to disseminate on any studies. I'm sure we have studies on that and how these
Yes.
devices make my hair turn brown and gray.
We have a EME report prepared regarding the
Perfect.
and it'll be submitted to the county with the application, and it's also filed with the FCC.
Okay.
I just had a question on maintenance. You anticipate once a month a crew is gonna go up there to test the generators. Is that pretty much it, once a month?
Typically, yeah, it's about once a month.
And will you be coordinating that through crews, or how is access gained? Do
We,
you have separate access?
We generally write access terms into the agreement. They notify us usually. It's coordinated with our operations.
Any other questions, Jim? Chris?
Bring us more carriers. Let's co-locate. We want
I
more.
think that's Aaron's job.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Little Aaron.
So our next, there's no action required tonight. This is just information. The next thing that we'll do is working with AT&T and Patrick. We'll negotiate the lease terms, and I would anticipate that the next time we'd be back with this would be to present the lease.
Okay.
So how long a process is this? Because it sounds like you have to go through a county
Typically, county process will take to get through zoning, 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And then 2 months for the, 6 to 8 weeks for the building permit application.
For the application. So this would be next spring, then this would get built.
Yes.
Wow.
And then holidays, so we're ending November and December are really slow for cities, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's our world.
Yes.
We know well.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so
We
much.
resemble everyone.
No, permitting, we know how slow permits are to get around here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for bringing the
Appreciate
trainees with you.
Yeah. Next generation.
Too.
See, you had your apprentices, that was great.
Yeah.
They
Fascinating,
told
wasn't
me they only came because you promised to get them milkshakes on the way out, so.
You know, we've been, that's under discussion. Part of the negotiation.
I heard it was burgers, fries, and milk.
Don't listen to that.
Run, Aaron, run.
It's on TV, it has to be true.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, take care.
Interesting question. And what's the help?
We saw his habitat.
And do they have funky babies?
Does that require a CEQA?
AT&T does all of that, yes, it does.
Yeah.
But AT&T handles all of that, yeah.
I noticed their trees when we were down in LA a couple of weeks ago, and we going down the San Diego freeway from the valley to the west side, and I looked up and I saw this tree up there, and the only reason that I knew it was the south side was because it looked out of place being a tree. It was
Right.
pretty barren up there right now. And I went, well, they're starting to look good. They used to look kind of clunky, now they look pretty good. They almost look like a real tree.
technology.
Down in Southern California, they're usually mono palms. Really, in Long Beach, they line all the roads, you know.
I've never seen a palm. This was a pine.
Yeah.
I've seen the saguaro cactus one in Arizona. Well, a redwood, the tree, the evergreen looked out of place.
Yeah,
I
that was
figured out that wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, the demand for these sites is pretty high, and now we have all the cell companies upgrading their sites for more bandwidth. They're putting up new antennas, they're putting up remote radio units. So we've been in some discussions with some of our carriers. So we try to, when they want to come back and put new things up, we try to increase the rent. And generally, we've been
Thank you.
successful. But we've also been learning some lessons about provisions, how to, make our agreements better. We can think of things, oh, we wish we'd put that in there.
What other sites do we have that could, what about the Denniston treatment plant that's got that?
That's kind
clear-
of back in that canyon.
But the tank is up on the
Yeah.
clear well there.
Yeah, Aaron has done a pretty good job of publicizing, he's given them all of our sites with all of
Okay.
this, the GPS coordinates, so
Yeah.
and they've got software that allows them to look, do a preliminary evaluation, look at, where they can get to from various places. So, and they really put a lot of work into these sites. I haven't heard the figure, but they've got to spend upwards of $500,000 to $1 million to establish one of these sites. So, and
Is
they've been working on this one for a while.
Is anything on Cahill Ridge?
No, we don't have our easement with SFPUC doesn't allow us to put it, but Skylon has a big antenna, they have a big antenna farm up there. That's a big deal for Skylon. They have a whole bunch of towers.
Keep those people in communication.
Yeah, it's good to have backup communication.
I just want to stay in touch with the other world.
That's
Yeah.
right. All right, so our next award of contract for Phase 3 pipeline.
Yeah, this is a three-part, actually now it's a four-part project. It started out as a one-part project, just the Avenue Cabrillo pipeline, which was to replace all of the galvanized and cast iron pipes in the south part of El Granada. Due to the high cost, we split this up into three parts. We've gotten the first two parts were very successful. It's bringing better water quality and water pressure to the residents there because we're removing the 2-inch lines and we're looping the system, which is always good for water quality. This is and Phase 3, we split up into two parts, 3A and 3B, because we actually expanded the project to go down Avenue Alhambra. This is all Belgian cast iron pipe, which is subject to failure, and we've replaced two or three main breaks on this stretch of pipe just in the last year. So we're including that in this one. We put this out to bid in July, and we got 5 bids, with Andrini Brothers being the lowest. this would be the second time that they came in as the low bid. The first phase was Stolowski and Gonzalez. They didn't do as good this time, but I believe they have a lot of work anyway. So this, what we're asking is to, we have it all planned out, all the engineering drawings, et cetera, and we are ready to proceed, and all we need is your permission.
Just a question, does this pipeline affect all of El Granada or just the flatlands part of El Granada?
The lower part of El Granada. The main pipe, the 16-inch pipe actually comes in and runs along Columbus Street.
Oh,
Move we approve it.
I'll second.
Okay, Joanne, this is your moment of glory, go for it.
Director Fagerdo?
Aye.
Vice President Michelson?
Yes.
Director Flint?
Aye.
Director Glassford?
Aye.
Aye.
President Reynolds?
that's great, that came in right at the budgeted amount pretty much.
And a little under the $1 million a mile
Yeah.
benchmark. Only $1,500 a foot. Or $150 a foot.
That's wild. And this is a pretty high, this is, cause it's always kind of been up by the school, and this is the most heavily traveled part of El Granada.
Yeah.
And we're all, I mean, I know I'm gonna see it every day. You're gonna see it too, right? Yeah.
So, you have a lot of supervisors watching,
Yeah.
I know you need
We're
that.
not too worried about it.
Andrini does a very good job
They're
of,
great.
keeping things clean and, they're organized, they don't, we don't worry when Andrini is doing the job.
They do not require as strong a supervision.
Very professional.
Yeah, so that's nice, because this
Yeah.
is a really important corridor, and they're generally employing, locals, and they're
Yeah,
driving the
that's-
same roads, so
Yep,
it's always nice.
that's a good deal. All right, on to the CEQA notice of exemption for the Hazen Tank Replacement Project.
Okay, we approved in June a design contract for Hazen's tank. And in order to do the project, we need to comply with CEQA. And because we're replacing the tank with a tank of the same size and not really expanding the function, and it's on the same site and we're not making any major modifications, this project qualifies for a CEQA notice of exemption. So once the board approves this and we post it, there's a 30-day period in which it can be challenged, and after that it becomes, that window closes. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the window for challenge closes under CEQA reg. So,
Then it goes to
It's
bid
just-
after that?
well,
Or we're not ready yet?
SRT will prepare the project documents, so this ensures that we'll have, the notice of exemption will have passed its challenge period and be solid by the time we're ready, well before the time we're ready to put the project out to bid and construct.
Go ahead.
I just was confused because in the generic on the front, it says it's a 75,000 gallon tank, and then inside it says it's a 50,000 and a 50. It doesn't matter to me, but it just seems like,
Which is
I hope they're gonna design the tank that we're really
75
replacing.
is it
0.75 million gallons, or 0.075.
It's 75, okay, we'll correct that.
We'll have to correct
Yeah,
it.
thanks for catching that.
I don't mean to be neurotic, but
Yeah.
I think I did that.
you don't make mistakes like that.
I make them all the
I've
time.
watched you too long.
Mhm.
That's not you.
75, 50.
The important thing is it's exempt, so.
Yeah.
And it's the
Well,
same size.
We get it
That's
down
really-
small, we get it down small enough, we wouldn't need a permit.
But it's important that the notice exemption have the right size.
Exactly.
For
And then it
pointing that
wouldn't
out.
feel.
I noticed it. So I was
All right, I'll move that we accept the CEQA as amended to reflect that it's a 75,000 gallon tank.
Second, and may I ask a question?
Please.
So is this the place where we're gonna try to put the cell tower?
Yes.
One and the same?
Mhm.
Is there anything that we can do at the same time that would help us out in this design, meaning we're
Make a
talking about getting?
65-foot tall tank.
No, but I mean, we're talking about getting electricity, or we're talking, maybe there's gonna be telecommunications, or I'm just wondering if there's anything we can plug into the design that would help us later on, assuming that the faux tree is gonna show up with
We are
access.
hoping that the faux tree and the AT&T site is complete before we start the actual construction, because they will provide a better access road, and the electricity will be up there so that we could provide power to the telemetry and possibly a motor-operated valve for the altitude valve.
Oh, cool, that's great planning, thanks.
So,
And then also, we have some Monterey pines up there that are old and are they're at the end of their useful life. I guess all trees are useful, but they pose a danger, and AT&T will remove the trees.
Wow.
At their expense, and provide us with an alternate tree that will not grow as high, and will offer better shelter of the tank from the site, but not impede the functioning of the antenna.
And the alternate tree has a low EMF?
Yes, most definitely.
so you think the timing will work on that?
We
Spring
haven't,
for this project?
we don't know the timing of AT&T's project. I don't
Sounds
think we
like
can
it's
do
gonna be a
these at
while.
the same time.
No.
So we'll look at whether coordinating, you know, if we have to wait for AT&T, we'll just look at whether that has
Their
any,
flexibility.
implications for us, and if not, will probably be useful to wait,
Yeah.
let them get done.
So we've had the motion, we have a second, we approved? All aye, you wanna do a roll call?
Whatever you want to do.
Go for it, roll call.
Okay. Director Coverdale?
Aye.
Vice President Michelson?
Aye.
Director Flint?
Aye.
Director Glassford?
Aye.
President Reynolds?
I really enjoy it when she does the roll call.
She does it well.
It's really nice.
Could be new policy.
Don't you think so?
Everybody's
Tower
roll
during
call.
this department.
All right, we have the we have a agreement with Tyler Technologies for utility billing software. And where is Tyler Technologies tonight?
Lubbock, Texas.
Oh my.
Do you love it, or do you hate it?
Okay. I think we've mentioned to the board on a number of occasions how frustrated we've been with our utility billing software. And our frustration really peaked with their failure to produce, even after promising to do so, modifications that would allow us to bill as we said we need to bill during a drought. We just weren't able to, we tried, Kathleen tried everything for, 3 years to get them to work on this. And that's been typical of their responsiveness. We started out with Tyler 1999, 2000, and they were a small company then and quite responsive. If you called there, you immediately got somebody. If you had a problem, they would fix it. Now, if there's a problem, let's say we have a problem with some of their reports don't work. We call them and say, well, fix this. And they said, well, if you want it fixed, you need to go on our website and vote for that fix, so it'll get higher in the priority queue. And, you know, it doesn't work. I mean, come on. And now we have to vote for it? Well, you know, don't get us started on Spring Break. And so, you know, we have known for a long time that this would be disruptive and a big effort for us. But we've just gotten to the point where we feel we need to make a change. There isn't anything we do with Springbrook that doesn't frustrate the bejeebers out of us, and we were going through this last week when they did some upgrade for us. Anyway, so the process we went through is we kind of talked to different districts around us. This space in the software spectrum is, that doesn't have a lot of players. We're a relatively small agency. We only have 7,000 accounts. We don't need an Oracle database. We don't need something, you know, we don't need the kind of thing that East Bay Mud or San Francisco has, and we don't have any in-house programmers, so we need good support. So there really aren't too many. There aren't too many. You can count them on one hand, the packages that people are using. And Tyler really stood out for us. And one of the things that particularly interested us was that North Coast County Water District, after researching all the available alternatives, went with Tyler. And so we went over, three of us went over and spent a whole morning there, and they were very nice to us. They gave us a demonstration. They talked to us about the support. They talked to us about their issues and their experiences with Tyler, all of which have been pretty good. So after that, we contacted Tyler. They came out for basically a full day on 2 occasions. They sent the first time the sales rep came out for a day just to kind of catalog our needs, and then they brought a team of 3 people back who spent an entire day demonstrating the software, answering our questions, things like that. So by the end of that process, when we said, well, could your software handle this billing approach that we couldn't get from Springbrook? And the guy says, oh yeah, we have this rate formula builder, and here's how you use it. He just went, it was like an Excel spreadsheet. He said, okay, well, here's how you build the rate. Ding, ding, ding. And, you know, it was like, wow. You know, we tried for 3 years to get Springbrook to do that, and it's part of their standard package. So,
Well, you voted wrong.
so, well, the scariest thing was when, you know, we complained bitterly. I think I wrote a letter to the president of Springbrook, and you know, then they were all, you know, of course, you know, they went into customer service mode. They sent us little squeezy toys, squeezy toys, you know. They sent us a bunch of little party favors, and for a while made a big show of being responsive. And we said, okay, well, we need to talk about this budget billing approach we want to use. And they had the guy who was in charge of software development for the utility billing package, and he said, well, what's budget-based billing? And we thought, oh, well, this is probably not going to work well, given that that's sort of the biggest trend in the, you know, in the water utility business. Anyway, so we are ready to take this step, and we budgeted in the CIP $200,000 for this transition. It's a big deal. It'll take us 6 to 9 months, or maybe a little bit more, because there's a period of just training and getting everything right before we switch over. And we think this is the way to set ourselves up for a lot of things that we want to do in the future. Should we ever get automated metering,
He's talking to you.
this would integrate, this system would integrate much better with it. It'll integrate much better with our GIS,
This is your last term,
which is
right?
limited now because of the proprietary database that Springbrook has saddled us with. So we think it's going to be a lot of work, but in the end will be well worth it. And so we're recommending that we go ahead.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
excited for
Let's go.
staff. I'm happy for staff. They have the possibility of a new software system. And certainly now in, you know, drought, you know, potential rationing looming out there, monthly billing, and we need a dynamic software. And this is, you know, clearly we weren't getting it, and it sounds like these guys can deliver it.
Where does the data reside, on our server?
It'll be on our server.
Okay.
Right.
And does it back up to them, or we are
We have
responsible to back up ourselves?
Yeah, we have our own backup scheme, which is both local and in the
that new
cloud.
office.
In the new office. Is it
In case there's ever in the unlikely event of
the
a
fan would
server
fall
fire.
over? The rare occasion, a fan on a stool would fall over.
You can live in the cloud. It's all going cloud.
We have Irvine Consulting Services is in charge of all of that, backup system administration.
And then in the future years, what's the support? We pay them an annual fee?
We pay them an annual fee of about 15,000, which is.
And does that include software or just the hardware? I mean, just support?
We pay the one-time licensing fee, and then we get upgrades to the
As they
software.
come, okay.
Right.
I like that model.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a pretty good breakdown on it, did you see it?
Huh, I didn't see it.
What's amazing to me is that it's not very much more than we're paying Sprinklr.
Right, yeah, it's
Yeah, and I
it's about $800 a year more.
Amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was also excited to see real-time access for customers to billing and
That I
water
think
use.
That's that's an option.
Well, that's the future, because when people, it should be here, because we've had leaks that can go on for 59 days in the 60-day billing period. And you should be able, it should be real time.
I have my new ultrasonic Badger meter with its new telemetry unit sitting in my front yard. Can't read it.
We're working on that.
Didn't go anywhere. Joe's ignoring me.
Is it Sprinklr?
It needs to go from the billing to the network and then back to be able to read it. I move we approve.
Yeah, absolutely. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Oh, roll
no,
call.
roll call, sorry, Joanne.
This is $150,000.
There you go.
Director Pavlik.
Can I get a point of clarification first?
Sure.
When you add up all the little numbers, it is around 200,000. It's 178 or something like that.
Well, you may be including some of the options, which were not gonna be part of the,
So which dollar amounts of this, I'm sorry to hold
No,
this up for a
it
minute,
says,
but
Okay,
I read a
that's,
bunch. I read a 128, I read a
if you look
14.
look on page 53 of
That's
attachment.
that one.
Okay.
53, yeah.
So the bottom line down there, project total, those are the numbers, those will be the numbers for what we got, 130,000 for licensing and implementation. And then, we will pay at some point within 3 months after or so, after we're online, we pay the 1 year annual support fee.
Okay, and
And
so,
then the other numbers are optional,
So
service.
it's
Well,
146
actually, these-
then the first
The,
year.
the subsequent pages, 54 and 55, and 56 are the detail behind the summary on 53.
oh, okay. But those aren't
Oh,
additional numbers?
Those aren't
No,
in addition?
No, those
Oh,
just
okay.
break these numbers on 53 down.
Oh, great. I apologize for being such an input
No, I
reader, but
appreciate you bringing it up.
just wasn't clear on how much money we were spending. So,
The motion is amount not to exceed 150,000. That's the staff recommendation.
oh, okay. Thanks. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, no, wait, we're doing a roll call.
Well, she called my name, so I
Did
can
she?
aye. Yes,
You have special treatment.
of course.
I heard aye. from
I'm
Director
still at aye.
Pavlik. Vice President Michelson?
Aye.
Director Flint?
Aye.
Director Glassford?
Aye.
President
Aye.
Reyes? Thank you.
You had me at aye.
All right, let's talk about stage 2 water shortage emergency warning.
What a cheerful talk.
Now, are we gonna use colors the way the Department of Homeland Security did, where this will be color orange or colored
If you
brown?
look at our website, we have shades.
Brown,
If you go on our homepage, we have shades.
We can work on the coloring.
yeah, okay.
Do fluorescence, whatever you want. We can work on that.
But green is out. Or when it rains, we get green.
Or blue.
Brown is the new green.
Yeah, brown is the
Yeah,
new
Brown
I've
is
green.
been on the blue thing.
What?
All right, tell us the bad news, Kathleen.
I know, I lost my audience.
They did flee.
What happened? I thought they were here from my before.
No justice.
So, actually, let me move this one. There are actually two separate items to this staff report for the board's consideration tonight. The first is the proposed resolution for implementation of stage 2 of the district's water shortage contingency plan. This is attachment A in your staff report. And then second, there's the proposed ordinance to establish water use restrictions as part of implementation of stage 2. And this is attachment B of the staff report. So to kind of start back at the beginning of some background, the reason the district needs to go from a stage 1 water shortage advisory, which is what we're in right now, to a stage 2 water shortage emergency warning is that the State Water Resources Control Board adopted emergency drought conservation regulations in July that mandate water suppliers take specific actions. So the district is required to implement all the requirements and actions of the stage of its water shortage contingency plan that impose mandatory restrictions on outdoor irrigation of ornamental landscapes or turf with potable water. So for the district, stage 2 water shortage emergency warning is where we talk about implementing restrictions on outdoor water use. So that's why we're recommending going to stage 2. So to comply with the state's emergency regulations, staff is asking the board to consider adopting resolution number 2014-06, implementing stage 2 water shortage emergency warning of the district's water shortage contingency plan. The board will need to adopt this resolution before we proceed and discuss the ordinance in part 2 of the staff report. So if you have any questions regarding the ordinance, the resolution, I can answer that now for you.
Ken?
I'm good.
Chris?
I'm good.
One question, is there anything in this resolution that goes beyond what the State Resources Water Board passed?
Maybe a question
Good
for
question.
Pat.
No, in the resolution, there is nothing. It's basically the determinations of shows the history of all the steps we've taken to date regarding the drought and also the actions by the state.
Okay, I'll come back and
But that
ask
would be a
that
good question
for
with
the
respect to the ordinance as
I
well.
was gonna say, I'll come back and ask that same question, in case I forget.
Oh,
Ask that question.
I'd like to move we approve resolution 2014-06.
Second. Go ahead.
Third.
It's yours. No, yours.
Second.
Yes.
Aye.
I don't want to be blamed for this.
Rochambeau.
So let's do roll call.
Please do a roll.
Director Coverdale?
Aye.
Vice President Michelson?
Aye.
Director Flint?
Aye.
Director Glassberg?
Aye.
President Reynolds?
Aye.
Didn't think it'd be that easy, did you?
Well, the hard part's coming. So now that the board's adopted the resolution, before you in attachment B is proposed ordinance number 2014-02, which contains the water use restrictions, prohibitions that are required under the state's emergency drought regulations. In addition to stage 2 of the district's water shortage contingency plan and some wording from the district's current water waste ordinance, which is ordinance number 2008-01. And so just for your reference, the water waste ordinance 2008-1 is an attachment to your staff report, if I can find it. Along with the wording from the state's emergency drought regulations for reference. And then I also included a description of stage 2 of the water shortage contingency plan, so you can cross-reference all those documents. So I thought that I would focus on section 3, 4, and 5 of the ordinance. That is where we have the descriptions of the restrictions, prohibitions, and enforcement plan. So section 3 of the ordinance is prohibited activities in promotion of water conservation. And you'll see section A 1 through 4, that wording came almost verbatim from the state's emergency regulations. And then section B, that wording is adopted from our current water waste ordinance 2008-01 with some minor changes. So that kind of, so you can understand where we were pulling the wording from and what our plan was for that. So section 4 is the mandatory restrictions on outdoor irrigation of ornamental landscapes or turf. So this is specifically developed from our stage 2 water in our water shortage contingency plan, and we've chosen for a time of day restrictions. So we're prohibiting irrigation between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now we've exempted some sales classes or uses from this time of day restriction.
What if it's
And-
foggy?
Sorry, what?
Is it okay if it's foggy? I think it's smart ass.
So the exempted sales classes or uses would be agriculture, plant nurseries, cemeteries, sports fields, public parks, and golf
Like
courses.
that, guys, it'd be one.
And so I know you're asking, well, why are we making these exempt? And the reason is sports fields have high use and special irrigation needs where watering just at night might be difficult. And in general, cemeteries, in agriculture have such large, acreage that it's difficult to manage that only at night. So, so these were the obvious classes that I chose to exempt from the time of day restrictions. And there's also exceptions for time of day restrictions in section C, and that's basically if you want to use a handheld bucket to water your plants, which I'm one of those collecting my shower water and kitchen sink water and running out and helping supplement the irrigation on my favorite plants so they don't die. So that would be okay during the normal between 8 and 5 p.m. If you needed to do some supplemental hand watering, as long as you have an automatic shutoff valve on the garden hose that you're using and you're not violating anything in section 3, you could do that. If you're having to work on your irrigation system to fix a leak or broken sprinkler head or something like that, that's exempt. You could do that during the 8 to 5 period. If you have what we call a low volume irrigation system, also known as drip, that could be used during the day 8 to 5. And if you have a gray water system, you could use that between 8 and 5. That would be exempt. And then the use of recycled water. And so I know you're wondering, if we don't have recycled water, why did I include recycled water? I have gotten some calls from people who have suggested that they're able to get recycled water from outside our area and bring it in. So if that's true, I haven't been able to confirm that's true or not, but if that's true, people are able to bring in recycled water from over the bay, then they would be allowed to use that. It would be exempt from our enforcement. So maybe we should stop here. If you have any questions on section 3 or 4 on the prohibitions and restrictions, we could discuss that at this point.
Ken?
The only thing that keeps stirring up in my mind is it just seems like number 2 and number 3 in section 3. I don't know if there's a little more clarification or something, but it seems to me like whenever you're washing a car or a vehicle, even with a shutoff, you're causing water to run off on a concrete surface or a driveway surface. And so I don't know how bad it's gonna get, but I feel certain that if the drought continues, there's gonna be a lot of anxiety, a lot of phone calls, and I know you guys are taking care of that. You have managerial provisions. But I just wonder if there's something that could be added that says that washing of a vehicle may cause water to run off on a driveway, and I just think of almost any situation where you're washing it. And I don't know if it'll get that bad or not, but that was the only, and I don't have a clever suggestion for it, I just.
I think the word
see-
indiscriminate probably is about the best you're gonna be able to do. In other words, it's almost recognizing there's gonna be some water that's gonna run off if you're washing a car, like you're saying. But if it's indiscriminate, in other words, you're not paying attention to it, it's just flooding off, then that's a problem.
Yeah, so the indiscriminate application of water,
Because I'm with you, I don't know how else you would describe that.
Number 3.
Number,
Actually, Kathleen, doesn't our ordinance say that the next level of severity, we
Yeah.
prohibit
It's
home
prohibited,
washing
yeah.
and we tell them they have to go to a car wash
Yes,
that
we catch that,
recycles
we
the
do
water?
next level. and then
So that's the next
Management
level, is we
rationing,
say Nixie Nate
$500
doing this in your
fines.
yard.
Yeah.
Sean out there leaning on our customers.
in a stage 3, definitely, and if we went to an actual emergency, then yes, that would be more of a prohibition than a restriction. This wording, I added boats and trailers to this description, but other than that, it's pretty much what the state wrote. So that's part of that's what a lot of agencies are struggling with, was the state's wording and how to implement that. Because it's difficult when there's, it's a subjective judgment call. At what point are you causing runoff or a waste of water? So I do acknowledge that. I'm not sure what wording we could add that would take that subjectiveness out of it.
yeah, I think Arnie's suggestion, the indiscriminate application of water to driveways and sidewalks would do it, just adding indiscriminate.
Which you
I mean,
have on
unless-
section 3.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just number 3. Put
Yes,
in-
we could use number 3 for that then.
Yeah, I think so. Just
Yeah.
add the word indiscriminate application, and then I think it covers it. Because if you've got a shut-off device on a hose and you're washing a car, and it looks like it's running off, it's not indiscriminate because you're attempting to control it.
But I think also number 3, what the intent there is to say, look, don't clean your driveway by using the hose. And so I do agree with you that I've seen this written in language that says, hey, no, you know, basically in layperson's term, use a broom, not the garden hose.
Yeah, I just
So-
read that too, I was surprised you're actually even allowed to.
So, really, in my understanding of line 3 is it was never intended that if you were hand washing your car and it dripped on the concrete, that was a violation. It was that there are some businesses, and then this is very common in urban areas where each morning they'll wash down the sidewalk in front of their premise to clean the sidewalk in front of their business. And so what this is saying is, hey, nixie nay, use a broom. And so I would agree that we could wordsmith this a little instead of saying the application of water to driveways makes it seem like we're watering our concrete, whereas I've also seen this written to say, hey, no washing with a
Well,
hose.
It's prohibited in section A3, you can't wash your sidewalks and
Exactly.
driveways. That's
Yeah.
prohibited, that's from state language.
Right.
So, so I don't think we need to change any of the wording on that. I mean, that's, coming straight from the.
If I can help, if we're focusing on 3A 1 through 4,
Mm-hmm.
the language of that, as Kathleen mentioned, those are prohibitive activities with that wording that you see in there throughout the state,
Yeah, but we can do
applicable to
better.
all Californians. So if you were to make this less stringent, it's still illegal.
No,
under the state
I meant to
rules.
clarify it because nobody said the guys in Sacramento were good wordsmiths.
By the way, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, we could change it in our ordinance.
Yeah.
It's still illegal the way it's worded in California. And for a little bit more background, these regulations by the State Water Resources Control Board happen very quickly.
Yeah.
They send out drafts on July 8th. The hearing is a week later is when you have to submit comments. They adopt them with some modifications. They send them to the Office of Administrative Law, who approves them 10 days later, and they're effective at the end of July. So The background on this is they're trying, at least on those prohibitions that are applicable to all Californians, is really to try to sweep with a broad brush areas that are really hurting with everything.
Yeah.
So I think that, I just want to give that background for
Yeah.
that.
And what I attempted to do in section B is to kind of help us clarify the state's language in section A. I might not have been completely successful, but, so if someone was being abusive and, with washing their car with a shut-off nozzle, because it's allowed, then I could use B3 to say, look, you're
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
abusing that.
Okay.
You're causing excessive runoff, and it's a waste. Not saying enforcement's gonna be easy, but I was trying to,
Yeah, no, that
provide
makes sense.
a little more clarification on the states. I know what the intent
I'm
of the
praying for
state.
rain.
You're kind of taking what the state's intent was
Yeah.
and kind of trying to clarify that in section B a little bit.
It's fairly standard. You see it in every town.
No, I think it's well done, Kathleen. My question would be, how's this information gonna get out to our customers?
Good question. Let's start from the beginning. It has to.
Curriculum.
The obvious ones at first, within the first month, it's going to be published in the paper at least once. We will do our electronic newsletter. We will do a direct mailing. Probably, and then, this is within the first 30 days of adoption. And then I imagine we're going to have to repeat those because it takes multiple times usually for the message to really get out there. And then we're looking at other ways to get the message out besides those. But those are our go-to. Those are the first ones that we use to get the message out.
I know probably the email is probably the most effective, at least for me it is. But I would recommend putting in large block print at the top of the email, water restriction implementation or something that catches the eye, that's a color, red maybe, or something, so that it's not easy to see a lot of words and then just delete it because it's too many words.
Yes.
Or
It's a
this
struggle.
ordinance affects you, water restriction,
Yeah.
rules
I'm
that
hoping,
affect you.
it's for detail, I'm hoping to direct people to the website where there'd be more detail. That's kind of a trick to use. But then not everyone has access to a computer, so.
Or even what's sent home, something in big print that catches the eye that
Right.
says,
Yeah.
here's some new rules for you,
Right, okay.
to add to every other governmental agency that gives you rules.
Kathleen, I have two comments. In section 4, we've written here that night-only watering. And my concern is that if we go to the next phase, night-only watering isn't going to be adequate.
No.
And as a curtailment. And so my concern then is that we'll be asking people to water either alternate days or to not water. So if we follow the program as sketched here, we're gonna be asking people to reprogram their water timers to nighttime. It'll be easy to enforce because as we drive through town, you'll see irrigation on and that's easy. The next step would be alternate days of watering or not watering at all. And both of those will then be much harder to enforce if the timers are already programmed to night. So then we'd be asking the community to reprogram their meters again, and we'd be asking our enforcement people to drive around at night to see how many people have left their timers on the old nighttime circuit. Seems like a colossal pain in the butt for us. That seems an awful lot easier if we started them on that hey, we want you to only water on even days, or some program that sets them up for the next stage, so that we're not reprogramming and not moving a group that now will be watering at night. So I'll leave that thought for you to ponder. I know that it just concerns me that the next level, which will be enforcement, because this isn't enforcement, we want to set the population up for it, and we want to make it easy for the district and easy for the community. My next concern is, could you talk about section 4B, where it's okay to water cemeteries?
So we only have a few cemeteries in town, and I'm including Skylon, even though they're outside our service area, in that, you know, under that definition. So they usually have, I mean, I'm specific, the largest one we have is Skylon, and they have such a large area, it would be hard for them to do all their irrigation at night, you know, in my opinion. They aren't exempt from the water waste, the prohibitions in section 3. So even though they can water during the day, we don't want runoff down the streets. You know, they have to control it. They have to have, you know, be as efficient as possible. So it's not like they don't have any restrictions. It's just they don't have the time of day restriction.
One of my concerns is that if we ask the public to not water during the day, and they're told they have to water at night, and then they drive through town and the cemetery's blowing water everywhere and the parks are blowing water everywhere, it sure means, it seems like that's an increased number of phone calls into our water district saying, hey, why is the park blowing water all over the park? And the second is, it makes it seem like, oh, the public should restrict, but the park doesn't have to, or they're not paying attention, why are they allowed to do it? And anytime you set up that sort of them and us, it seems like it doesn't seem like an ideal protocol.
I understand where you're coming from. For parks and playgrounds, it benefits, it's a community benefit.
Because you wash the children while they're on the play structure?
Yeah, so that it's not ornamental, it's not just aesthetic, it has a purpose, and it has a high use, so, you know, maintenance and irrigation tend to be, you know, a little bit higher. Again, we still expect them to control the irrigation and be as efficient as possible. So we would still respond to complaints to any of these users if we get complaints about that they're being wasteful in their in irrigation practices. But you know that was a subjective decision, you know, making up this ordinance to kind of pick these out. If you feel that I was wrong and we need to change, you know, eliminate that, you know, then the board does have the discretion to change that.
Ken?
Well, I mean, it's a better use of water to irrigate at night. There's less wind.
So
it's
why are we
cooler.
exempting all the cemeteries? Why are we exempting the playing fields? I mean, it seems like a school sports field, you want the kids on it during the day,
Right.
and you don't want the sprinkler running.
They don't water during the day for the
Yeah,
most part.
so
anyway,
why
because they're
carve
kids
them
there.
out and say they're exempt? I mean, it seems like, I would put it exactly the other way around. I would say entities such as agriculture, plant nurseries, cemeteries who need an exemption may apply to the district and get it, rather than say, hey, you know, the big water users, well, you don't have to follow these rules, but everybody else does. And I agree that I think most of the the schools will water at night anyways. The schools will, the parks certainly do. And the few exceptions where they need to, we could simply say, please just let us know that you have a need to do it the other way. And only for the purpose of making them actually think about it and following through the step. But
Yeah,
I
but I
think
was back
consistency
at
is
your-
important.
I was back at your concern about having people set their irrigation controllers for nighttime use. I hear you on the public reality, but I'm talking about every residential person who's now gonna be a problem because we have to go around at night to see who's violating
Yeah.
water use. We should be training them to water at night
night
anyway, it's
anyways.
just better. It's
Yeah.
better practice, early in the morning or, you know, early in the evening, whatever.
And that makes sense, and I think I do agree with you, that is a better way. I just worry that our next stage is that they can't water willy-nilly, and we, you know, how we will enforce that, I'm unaware of what our plan, you know, at this point, we're looking at hiring somebody, we haven't budgeted, we haven't talked about it, but we'd have to hire somebody, we'd have to put them in a pickup truck, and we'd have to have them drive around. And if we're doing a restriction, how will we police that and watch it? And I think these are the sort of discussions, and I don't really need resolution on this, but I'd sure like us to be thinking about this and going, okay, so this makes sense for now. I do agree with you that getting people to water at night is a much better way to go for a lot of reasons. But hey guys, what's the next step? How will we implement it? And how does it work? And how does the transition from this step to the next step be viewed by the community? In other words, if we come out one day and say, you know, water on the full moon, oh no, you can't water on the full moon. If we keep changing where we're going, people will become frustrated, pissed off, and feel like they're being subject to the whims of a poor plan. And that's what I really want to emphasize in bringing these issues up, is our plan needs to be really well thought out.
I really like your idea of not automatically exempting those categories, but causing them, if they feel they can't meet these criteria, causing them to be active. And maybe it's just a matter, say the cemetery, like you said, maybe too big to be able to do it all at night. Then maybe it's just a matter of changing those hours a little bit, so maybe they can go until 9 in the morning, or until start at 4 in the afternoon kind of thing, and make them
come to us.
Make them come to us and show why they need to have something different.
So one of the earlier versions of this ordinance that staff was drafting did have a sort of a exception or appeal process for that purpose. But we found when we were trying to write, when you have any kind of process like that where they have to come to us to get special permission, then we have to be very specific about what the criteria is to allow those exemptions and how we're going to, what contract we're going to enter into with that individual user. So, so at one point we removed that wording just because we're under such a strict time constraint to comply with the state's requirements that we didn't have time to work through all of those details of how we would set up an appeal process, who they would appeal to, who makes the final decision, what criteria we use to make the decision, who would be eligible for such an exception. So there's it is something staff did consider, and then it became a challenge to implement and write in and still meet our deadline for being in compliance with these regulations.
I think you did a great job. I'm impressed.
I had a lot of help.
Well, the team
The team did a great job.
did a great job.
Okay, so did we want to move on to section 5, or did we have any more comment on section 3 or 4?
Yeah, I want to go ask Pat here at this point. Pat, why is this such a legal faceplant that we can't say, hey, if you wanna water your cemetery in the middle of the day, give us written notice?
So I wouldn't say it's a legal faceplant. I think that might be a little hard. But Kathleen is right. I mean, this is the exact conversation we had, and that was my influence, if you're gonna have an exception process, you need to have criteria and a process for it to be followed, because you don't wanna have it just without those criteria, because then you're opening yourselves up to potential claims of discrimination, bias, unfair treatment. Why did you grant this exception to this person but not to me? I'm not that different from them. And the way you protect yourself against those types of claims is to have some clear criteria for the basis for the exceptions, how they would be applied, how they could be applied uniformly across the board, and so you don't have those types of claims. So we could do it. It would just take some time.
But right now, we've said that if you've got a 1 acre yard that you've lovingly tended with wildflowers, that's gotta go brown, but the cemetery can water anytime they want.
The ordinance is not saying that, because there's no restriction on the
On
amount
the use of
of
water, so you have to water
It's
at
only
night.
the time that
So,
you need
right,
to
so why
irrigate.
couldn't we just say, look, if you're a cemetery, you're a nursery, just like we did, give us written notice that you need a deviation.
So you could go the other way and just, that's gonna kill me. And just take out the exceptions and be silent on it. And say, you've gotta irrigate at night, and then see what happens. And then possibly amend your ordinance if you need to. That would be another approach to minimize the risks that I just talked about, but you're just coming at it from a different angle.
So any customer disputes, so there's no appeal for so we only have an appeal for the violation. We don't have an appeal for the mandatory restriction of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But that would be a simple, you put a clause in that says if somebody needs a deviation, they need to provide written notice, request
Justification.
justification.
Right, but you wanna have some criteria that whoever's gonna make that decision, probably your general manager, staff first, and then probably your general manager, what criteria are they gonna apply to those requests for exemptions? That's where I think it gets a little more sticky when you're talking about just irrigating at night versus this is the appeal process that's in here is just a violation and potentially going down that path.
I guess what I find intriguing about this discussion is that this is relatively trivial in that whether you water at night, whether you water during the day. But at the next stage, we tell people, hey, you can't use this much water, you can't go over it. So at that stage, then there will be hue and cry, there will be people asking for exemptions, they'll be asking for exceptions. So it strikes me that if we can't figure out right now how to handle that exemption, that sort of appeal process, that, hey, I'm a restaurant, I can't restrict my water, I can't lower it any lower and be still in business and wash my dishes, then it sounds like we have a real stress in front of us in terms of what to do when we get to that stage. And so that seems troubling.
Yes, it is. It takes a lot of thought, and we've done research on how other agencies have handled these types of appeals. Do you set up a special advisory committee to handle appeals? Do you have staff or the general manager handle it? I mean, so we did, look into it and do a lot of research. Unfortunately, we were in such a time crunch with this that we had to at some point abandon it. And like we can always amend the ordinance at a later date if we feel it's not working, or we can always come back and amend it. And indefinitely, if we went to a stage 3, an actual water shortage emergency, we would have to have the criteria and everything in place. If we went to stage 3, there's no doubt we would have to have that. But we were thinking in stage 2, we might be able to get away with not having that process.
So how do we as the board see a draft of that stage 3 appeal process?
Well, then staff would have to develop an ordinance for stage 3. making assumptions about what, there are different things that could get us into stage 3. San Francisco implementing the tier 2 cutback and, giving us a monthly budget. This is all kind of new. The state obviously can pass additional regulations if they feel what they've passed currently isn't enough or isn't working. So that's why we haven't done it, because there's a lot of unknown. We do have a draft ordinance in the Water Source Contingency Plan that was it's a very loose template that's been, basically was used in the past in the 1990s draft we had. That's part of, it's the problem with template ordinances is usually you have to go down and make it very specific to that situation, to how severe the drought is in your water shortages.
Any further questions?
I think one thing that has been kind of exciting for the district to date is through voluntary requests. I mean, we're cutting back 12%, isn't it? About 12% in the district right now?
Well, it depends which time period you're looking at, but if you look at February, if we've been tracking it, we asked for a 10% voluntary in February. So we started out tracking it basically in March, because we figured that's the soonest we could expect our customers to respond to a February request. And so overall, we've compared to 2014 to 2013, for that same period, March through July, all our customers as a total cut back about 9.7%. But certain classes have cut back even more, like residential, single-family residential has cut back almost 12%.
Wow.
So depending on the sales class, we've gotten a very good response from the residential customers since we've asked for the 10% cutback.
But I think that says that our communication is effective. And I think it says that we have a very cooperative customer base. And I think it also says that people are well aware of the conditions that we're facing as a state and a community and a neighborhood. So I think that we have time to work out the draconian steps, and maybe they'll occur and maybe they won't. But so far it looks like, from the reports that I've seen from SFPUC, things look pretty reasonable. They don't look great. I can't predict if it's going to rain or not. None of us can. We're all going to hope for rain, but we don't know. But I think that, especially when I was reading the percentages in storage in the SFPUC system, other than Calaveras, which blows it up because it doesn't exist, because there are major construction errors, or engineering errors going on over there, which are well beyond our control at a horrible time. The overall storage looks pretty good. The inflows are pretty reasonable, and yeah, it's kind of shocking. You pull out that 15%, and all the numbers suddenly, get reasonable. And I don't think it's good news. I don't think we should promote water wasting, but I just don't see us in the crisis yet. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't be prepared for it.
And I think there's no question that we're and in some areas, for instance, one of the things the State Water Resource Control Board resolution specifically emphasizes is increased local supplies. And the Coastside County Water District has been working diligently to get more local supply. And I think that's something that is really reassuring to see that what the state's guidance is aligned with the path that we started 10, 12, 15 years ago. And so that is good news. But the concern is that if it continues to get worse, it'll get ugly.
Well, I just wanted to continue just a little bit on this issue of who gets exempted. And I know this has been very, very rushed, and I don't know how you have time even to put this together, much less do an outreach. But I'm just wondering if any calls were made, for instance, say to the operations staff here at the school district to ask, when do they typically water? how will this impact them? How will it impact the cemetery? I mean, I guess I'm picturing that plant nurseries and agriculture would have a significant impact on it. That's just my imagination.
But they're also indoor, you know, to me, it's less visible to the public. It's dropping your kids off at school and seeing the park blowing water and seeing the school watering.
Well, you know, I've already gotten complaints about irrigation on off Highway 92, you know, up from the ag. So, I mean, people are already very concerned about agricultural irrigation.
But they're on their wells, right? Those guys are blowing the water from the creek, right?
Most of those are also on our water.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was from the creek.
If there are rainbirds, they're on wells.
Yes, it's a combination of both along that corridor, which is another complication because when I go out there to try and, you know, I'll have to, are you using our water? Are you using your well water? I mean, it's gonna get very complicated very quickly, which is another reason that I was quick to add agriculture to the, and plant nurseries to the list of being exempt. It's gonna take up a lot of staff time to do those investigations. But, I'm sorry, I've lost track of
But basically my question was, for instance, it would be interesting to know if we were to call the school district and say, when do you do your watering? When maybe it's not even an issue for them and they can be taken out of this. Also, I don't know when their staff needs, the school district staff isn't around when most of the watering's going on. You just hope that a sprinkler head doesn't blow. But for some of these businesses, I wonder if having to water between, you know, after 5 and before 8 would require them to completely restaff. I don't know. I don't know how the watering impacts. I could see something like that not being a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I haven't reached out specifically to the customers yet because I wanted to see what ordinance was passed by the board. But it is something, as soon as the ordinance is passed, then I have a list of agencies I need to contact and communicate with, like the city, the county, the fire department, the school district, probably state parks, to let them know what, you know, what the rules and requirements are, and just to communicate what's happening within their jurisdiction. I know the governor has already done a lot of outreach to schools. They have been asked to cut back 20% on their water use. So I know the schools have been contacted already from the state, at the state level, because since a lot of, you know, they have a lot of oversight by the state. So.
But I guess what I'm saying is that a phone call to the school district, and I use that as an example because I have some familiarity with it, might very well show that watering in the hours we want them to water is not an issue. They're probably already doing it, and then we could take them out of this. I mean, because I understand what Glenn's saying is that's so visible.
Yeah,
and maybe if we could not exempt them and still not totally mess them up, that would be a good thing.
So this, a good example is Cunha Intermediate School. They have grass in the front. Mm-hmm. That's not a playing field. So that wouldn't be exempt from the 8 to 5. I mean, school districts aren't exempt from everything. It's just the playing fields. So, you know, so where they have lawn just for aesthetic purposes, like in the front, I would have to communicate with them the difference between a playing field and, you know, their landscaping out in front, the decorative landscaping. You know, that's different. We have artificial turf and playing fields at a lot, you know, at the high school and now here at Cunha. So, we do need to do reach out, but it's gonna be it's gonna be a little complicated with the schools, I think, with their different playing fields and different situations and their different sites. But I definitely do need to do that. I definitely need to reach out to the different agencies.
These regulations, this ordinance pertains specifically to stage 2, right?
Yes.
So if we move to a different stage, all bets are off.
It's a new ordinance. If we went to stage 3, it would be, I would bring to the board, we would have another resolution asking the board to implement stage 3, and then with that would be a new ordinance with all the requirement, the restrictions and prohibitions and the other things.
My suggestion would be, given that we go with what's written now, do that research, because if we get to that next stage, I think that's when you can start cutting people off, especially the big user.
I agree with, that I agree with, because right now we're on an endless slippery slope of wordsmithing here. And it's.
And we're not gonna solve it.
And we're not gonna solve the crisis by wordsmithing. There's a stage 2.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to move that we adopt stage 2, which is, I mean, this 2014-02.
Dash 02.
02, baby.
Ordinance.
Yeah, I move we adopt this ordinance.
Before we do that, I just want to make one last comment on this. I don't have a problem adopting the language as it's presented to us. But I would like to throw out, as you mentioned earlier, the option after you've had an opportunity to talk to some of these exempted categories, because you exempted them based on your best assessment of the community and what the situation might be, which may or may not end up being reality when you actually talk to some of these folks. And I would really like to see that list of exemptions cut down, but am very willing to approve this as is, with the proviso that if you find out, after talking to some of these different groups, that we could remove them from the exemption list, that maybe we come back and take another look at that and exempt them, change the ordinance.
Yes, we can do that.
I'd go for that as an expedient way of moving forward.
I agree, we'll be here all night otherwise.
I really worry that we want our communication to make sense to the public, and when they see stuff exempted, they then wonder why. So, all right, do we have a second?
Yes.
All right, Chris, all right, Joanne, rock and roll.
And this is to approve, adopt ordinance.
Sorry, I tripped you up there.
Director Coverdale?
Yes.
Vice President Michelson?
Yes.
Director Flint?
Aye.
Director Glassberg?
Aye.
President Reynolds?
All right,
Good job. What a complicated, what a complicated
Very
piece
tough
of work.
timeline.
I'd like to, I would just like to add my thanks to Kathleen and to Patrick, who spent a lot of time on this. This is developed very rapidly. These new regulations went into place July 28th.
Yep.
So literally days ago. And I think they've done a very good job of crafting this to meet the requirements without overwhelming us with complications, details.
Do you think we could get Patrick to do little video clips on our website?
Sure.
Yeah, do you know he's kind of famous?
Is he?
Yeah. Have you seen him on the Hanson Bridget
I was
site?
to understand that started with the filming here, that he sort of liked it and sort of took it back to San Francisco, and the rest of the team was upset, so now there's the Hanson and Bridget videography team.
That is exactly right.
Why am I not playing this?
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Don't get me started, I got a lot, I could go there. All right, do we have 15 minutes worth of general manager and drought and?
I think we've heard pretty much, all we need to hear about drought
Thank
conditions,
you.
although, it's been really, we have tried to follow and anticipate the actions of SFPUC. And so every month we have the Bosco Water Supply Management Representatives meeting, and Steve Ritchie, the assistant manager of the PUC for water, comes and tells us what the update is. I mean, usually he doesn't, we're stuck with kind of reading his body language and he never explicitly says, well, here's where we're gonna go to mandatory rationing. I know they know it, I just don't think they could say it. I mean, they don't share very well with us. So we kind of read the body language, and this time he came and said, boy, it's looking better all the time. I mean, here the state is, passing these emergency regulations, and Steve Ritchie gets up and says it's looking better all the time. So, and I've included a couple of his graphs where he says, well, you look at this and this cumulative 10% savings goal graph, boy, that green line, which is still below the dotted gold line, it's occurred, the slope is increasing, and they're converging, so you can really And then if you look at the second graph where the dotted line represents 10%, the 10% reduction goal, the green triangles are well below that. So he's saying, yeah. So that's a good thing. So that gives us reason for, I wish we had a better quantitative handle on the kind of risk assessment that San Francisco has done, but we don't. Anyway, so that's their drought conditions update, and he points to the relatively high storage level in the overall San Francisco system as meaning that, we're basically on target. And I think that means, as we've always said, that we don't need to try to anticipate a transition to mandatory rationing before the end of the year. So we think we have at least 3 or 4 months to kind of react to this and to develop what our next phase is going to be before that happens. And when they do it, it will take a couple of months before we really have to have everything in place, before they'll have the new rates in place and things like that. So that's a reason for optimism. So we'll go from optimism to neutral. Administration building remodeling. We're optimistic about the administration building remodeling project. It has been a struggle getting with this remodeling project. First of all, getting everything sufficiently defined that the contractor knows what he's going to do. And it's also been, given the district's requirements and the relatively small size of this project, it's challenging to get somebody who really wants to sign a 100-page contract to pay prevailing wages and keep all the records involved with that, and we can put up a payment bond. So we've been through, for various components, we've tried to use local. We've been through a couple of iterations of people that take us all the way through an estimate and a proposal, but then can't handle the cash flow or can't bond the project or have never done prevailing wage. It's not, prevailing wage in this contracting space is not very common. So a lot of people don't want to bother with it. Anyway, I think we have a good contractor who's committed to doing the project. I really rattled their cage yesterday and said, you guys need to assure me that we're going to get there. And I got a call from the managing partner and from the guy who's been working on the project. He said, we are all in. We're ready to go. We can bond the project. All we're waiting for is to have the new HVAC number. So we just completed the redesign. We just completed redesigning the lighting, the electrical. We have the electrical number. So we're progressing, and it's an 8-week project. So I'm thinking that it's going to start at the beginning of September, and we'll be at the end of October back in our building. Yeah, Halloween. So that's my affirmation. So that's the update. But meanwhile, as I point out here, we're able to work very effectively in those temporary offices. We're not really suffering any great, other than the inconvenience of having to meet in here, we're not really suffering any great space constraints that are limiting our operations or that are annoying. I mean, we don't really like the ventilation and the temperature in the trailers. Our old building, is being mostly brick, is really comfortable. So we're complaining about the heat. It is summer.
Bay?
That trailer.
Yeah,
It gets hot.
But we're able to conduct our operations effectively in there.
Good.
And we'll have it back. We figure we'll have it back just in time to put to put Drought Central mandatory rationing folks in there. The extra customer service folks will be answering the tattle on your neighbor phone lines. And
Extend our trailer lease for another year.
it's only $500. It's about $500 a month, isn't it? $500. Yeah, so it's relatively inexpensive. It's a pretty cheap
A
office
little
space.
detention cells in there too for violations.
Oh, for classes,
For-
water.
Oh, yeah,
For-
classes, yeah,
for
we're gonna
water
need a classroom,
school.
water school.
Water school.
What do we substitute for water board?
We're gonna have a comedy water school, you know, you get
Yeah.
traffic school,
Multiple
get
if
pizza
it's water
traffic
board.
school, comedy
Yeah.
traffic school.
Joe can be our
Yeah.
stand-up
Yeah,
meeting.
we're gonna have
Actually, Joe can use them as recruits. don't he?
harmonica
Yeah.
traffic school, that's what it's gonna be our water school.
There's a long train coming.
Okay. Speaking of our famous actor, you're on.
Nothing really great happened this month.
That must have
No,
rubbed
that's
the wrong
okay.
report.
To be serious, El Granada Tank 2 is complete.
Well done.
That's nice. Took longer than we thought, but it's complete and looks really nice. One thing that has us concerned is on the Denison spillway. Well, there's two spillways at Denison. There's the large spillway, the wider one, and then there's a small spillway with a shaft that goes down to the toe of the dam. And that shaft had the spillway and then two other ports that were once gated with slide gates. And they've long since been gone and boarded up at some point in the past. And no one really knows when. Nobody on staff now could remember that, when those things were removed. And they're boarded. They're actually timbers,
Meyer did it.
keeping the lake from going down the creek. And one of them has a leak, about 30 gallons per minute. We're a little concerned about that. So we had an engineer come out, and we are hoping to, when we dredge this fall, to have them plated up and possibly fitted with a valve, so that we could actually operate that from the top side, and that will assist us greatly in draining the reservoir every year for dredging, because at this point we have to rent a pump and use siphons and pump what we can out of there. That was the big excitement of the month. If you have any questions on anything else in my report, I'd be glad to answer them.
Well, wasn't there more exciting news about an award that our illustrious superintendent received?
I've been.
First person singular, I noticed something in that report, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a continuous member of the American Water Works Association since 1984.
Congratulations.
Here, here.
And you were recognized for that. 30-year pin.
Yeah, I get a little, I got a award too, I forgot to wear it.
You gotta wear that.
Maybe next time.
You gotta show it off.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of now becoming sort of the guru of that organization, aren't you?
No,
You
but
felt-
I am very active and I am in a leadership role there. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. It's great to see you participate in all that. Makes us real proud.
They wanted me to go on the executive committee and be chair of the section, but I humbly declined that because it's way too much work.
Well, it cuts into the acting
Yeah, I was
career,
gonna
doesn't
say,
it?
that's not
Well,
nice.
it would cut into my real career, because they require a lot of time.
You mean the harmonica player?
No, this career.
It's a huge time suck.
Yeah, it is a time drain.
But it's great, congratulations.
Thank you for
I thought that
bringing
was
that
really
up. Thank you.
great to hear.
All right, further requests from the board? We're done.
Have a great trip.